Will I get bored playing this game?
Sometimes.
Will I get bored playing this game?
No.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I have a little bit of a different video from what I usually do. And if you're a frequent viewer and you've checked out my No Man's Sky stuff, you're probably thinking right now, why am I giving up on the game? As far as you can tell from the videos you've seen, I've been enjoying it. And the thing is, I have been enjoying it. Those first few hours of the game are amazing. You just get out there, you see the planets in the sky, you see the planet you're on, you're like, I can really get there? Then you build your spaceship, you fly out, visit the planets, and you're pretty amazed by what you find. Until you start realizing that stuff is randomly generated. So obviously you have the creatures are just random mismatches of things. They don't have any effects. Like in the E3 trailer you saw those dinosaur like Brachiosaurus things bathing in the water, or those eels flying through the sky. There's none of that in this game. All the animals just walk around. They don't really do anything. They're either hostile or neutral, and they just walk around. And that is really irritating to me. And it's not just that that's randomly generated, it's the planets. And now when you think about the planets, yes, of course they have to be randomly generated. The planets just don't have any character. If you know what I mean, there's infinite planets out there. They just shoved it into a generator. They have a few colours that appear on the planet, a few plants. That's the only variance. There's like a few hills on other planets, some weird rock shapes, but that's it. There's no desert planets. Of course there's ice planets, but all they have to do for that is just change the colour. There's obviously aqua planets, but variance of planets is an important thing, like gaseous planets, or just plain rock planets, glacier planets, desert planets. There's so much they could have done that they missed out on. And that's one of the things that really irritates me after heading out there and finding out there's hardly as much as what my imagination perceived for there to be. And of course, that isn't the game's fault. That isn't what they hyped it up to be. But there is so many little details that they did say were going to be in the game that weren't eventually in the game. And that's what I'm going to go into shortly. So here's another point about the game. There really isn't much to do. Of course, you're traveling around planets, you're mining resources, then stuff depletes. You use those resources to fill that stuff up, you mine more resources. You fly to another planet, fly to another place, land on planets, get more resources. Of course, there's like this little Atlas timeline thing that you can do with quests and whatever, but there really isn't much to that. Like, what I would like is side quests. Like, you can do stuff on the planet for the aliens. There was promised to be faction siding and actually faction wars, etc.
And different races have different attributes. So some are scientific, some are kind of combative.
Right.
And depending on how I'm playing, I might want to kind of make an allegiance with one or other.
Now, as far as I can tell, I'm pretty late hopping on this bandwagon for the No Man's Sky shaming from what it used to be. So there is a Reddit thread, I will put it in the description, that kind of explains everything that was supposed to be in the game that wasn't. I'm going to borrow a bit of that information to show you a few clips now of things that were supposed to be in the game that weren't.
Can you land on a comet?
Yeah, at the moment you can land on asteroids.
Of course, a few things like that may be little petty annoyances at what happened on the game, but that isn't my problem here. The problem isn't that, oh, those little tiny things went back on and no word was said. Of course I'm annoyed about it, but it isn't my main issue here. It's that you cannot trust a developer that goes back on their word for things in the future. So you have the DLC. You see DLC in the future, how can you trust that they're going to include everything that they say? They've given a bad word on the community and nobody's ever going to trust anything that they do anymore. And that's a shame, right? the game hyped up to be amazing. And a lot of people say, oh, the hype was just built off of people thinking it was going to be certain things. But from the clips I've just shown you, there were so many things that they said were going to be in the game that weren't. So multiplayer. Here you go, just a random few clips for multiplayer.
Will you be able to play with your friends?
Yeah.
Is there a competitive element to this game?
Yeah, if you want that, yes.
Can you grief other players?
A little bit.
They even went back on the multiplayer thing. So that's not my issue there, because they did say, oh, there's not going to be multiplayer just a few days before the game is released. The only thing is, if people weren't constantly checking up on the game, how are they supposed to know that? From what they had heard, there were going to be multiplayer. And there were so many different accounts of Sean Murray stating that there was going to be multiplayer in this game. But moving on from multiplayer, we saw the freighters flying about the planets. All of that E3 stuff, none of it was included. Like, none of it makes any sense. They show the E3 stuff, so they get pre-orders and people to buy it, and then they find out half the stuff wasn't even in the game. Even the combat, like, what is the combat in this game? You shoot at, like, little robots flying about, or things on the floor, or try your best at maneuvering through space and shooting at the same time. I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? But there was no faction fights. There was no in-space, side-on-side battles. You can't battle with your friends because guess what? No multiplayer. And yes, there was even a multiplayer symbol, online symbol, on the back of the No Man's Sky box, even though they say that each game is now separate. None of this makes any sense. So they go back on all of everything they've said, and how are we supposed to trust them? So most of this stuff I found out from watching Angry Joe's Angry Review the other day, and the thing is, most of this stuff that wasn't included in the game, I didn't even know about. So that's what irritates me. I didn't know that half this stuff was even supposed to be included in the game in the first place. And it's not because my hype was over the top from the stuff they said they were going to include, but it was more from the fact that I feel like the developer had betrayed us. Even though I didn't know that there was supposed to be landing on asteroids, or that there was supposed to be in-space trading, or half of this stuff, I went into the game looking forward to the experience. Of course, as I stated, the experience got boring very, very quickly, but then I watched the review and found out that half the stuff they said was going to be in the game wasn't, and that irritated the hell out of me. As like an up-and-coming game developer, I want to be a game developer, I would hate to do that. To your fans, you just go and say, oh yes, this is going to be in the game, and then don't include it, and then you've still got those raging people out there that are still raging, trying to cling on to what's left of the game. And I do see good points about this game. Of course, I'm not just straight up siding one side. I see the fun of just traveling about, enjoying yourself. But there is no game aspect to this. Okay, there's shooting. Okay, there's trading. Units, what do you do with them? You just buy like a spaceship somewhere down the line, and then what? Travel to the center of the universe? Ladies and gentlemen, now this is where it gets rich. I'm going to spoil the end of the game for whatever it is, so if you'd like to skip it, I'll put some kind of skip in the description. But this is mind-blowing. The hype taught one objective of this game: if all else fails, everybody goes for it. This is the end of the game, and I will put credit for the person I take this video from, but this is insane. And it's for those reasons that I'm not going to be playing. As I said, way too repetitive. Developers going back on the word, that is the thing that annoys me the most, the developers of this game. And if they could just go back this much, what's stopping them from doing this in the future? Now that is my main concern with this game. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll speak to you all next time.